Lucas, Kansas is home to many bizarre art installations around town, from the mosaic-covered public restroom to the rock sculptures at Miller's Park. But there's one place that stands out from the rest, not only because of its strange political and religious structures, but because this place shaped the town of Lucas into what it is today. With a population just over 300, Lucas is a very small town. It's unable to support its own high school, and there's only a single gas station in town. Yet, despite this, 10,000 tourists come every year to see its main attraction, the Garden of Eden.
The Garden of Eden is hard to describe in a few short sentences. It is a historic property built 100 years ago, and at the center of it is a log cabin made out of stone. Surrounding the stone log cabin are 3-story concrete sculptures that are almost like political cartoons in concrete form.
The man who built the Garden of Eden is Samuel P. Dinsmore, a former Civil War soldier who moved to Kansas in 1888 to farm. Arriving just a year after Lucas was founded, he was a major factor in developing the town's businesses. After 17 years of farming, Dinsmore bought the property that would eventually become the Garden of Eden.
This is your neighbor doing something. I don't think anybody was upset about him building things, but if you've ever built something in public, or if you've ever done anything in public, you know there's that one guy who's gonna come by every day and just give you a hard time. Because Dinsmore was sort of a firebrand and loved debating with people, there was a lot of that back and forth with his neighbors about what the meaning was behind the sculptures.
The first structure to be built on Dinsmore's new property was the limestone house. He envisioned the house to look like a log cabin, but instead of wood, it would be made of limestone. Not a single door or window in the house were the same size, and it featured elaborate moldings and baseboards. Dinsmore had built such a unique home that people traveling through Lucas would often stop by to take a look. Looking to capitalize on the attention his house was already bringing in, Dinsmore began constructing a few sculptures outside of his house that displayed images from the Bible. This included Dinsmore's interpretation of God. It showed Adam and Eve within the Garden of Eden and Abel slaughtering his brother Cain.
I don't know that he would have called himself an artist, but in the early ads that he put out for the Garden of Eden, he called it the most unique home for the living or the dead. And he did call them sculptures. So when you call something a sculpture, I think that means that you know that you, as the maker of that sculpture, might be an artist.
Dinsmore continued building more structures on his property. However, as time went on, the structures Dinsmore built turned from biblical to political, representing his views on politics and society. Dinsmore was a part of the Farmers Alliance and was an avid supporter of populist ideologies. He believed that railroads, trusts, and monopolies were taking advantage of the common man, and these organizations formed to combat their influence. Many of the citizens of Lucas, however, were Republicans who disagreed with this viewpoint. One of the sculptures Dinsmore built shows an octopus-like creature labeled Trust latching on to a woman and child, a sack of interest, a soldier's bag, and even the planet, all while being protected by the American flag.
I think Dinsmore was really building this as a social critique. He intentionally put into his sculptures some of those ideas that could have been contentious, that really was poking at some other people. So that, when you say in a rural town, can get some pushback. And he enjoyed that pushback. He really was pushing for people to think about what they believe and figure out for themselves, is this true or not?
Local opinion of the Garden of Eden ranged from wanting to pass a city ordinance banning public art to completely running Dinsmore out of town. Yet, despite this, Dinsmore was a Civil War veteran and did lots of business in Lucas. Many townspeople decided that, although the artwork was strange, it was mostly harmless and attributed Dinsmore's behavior to his old age. At this point, the Garden of Eden had become a tourist attraction, drawing in people from all across the region who wanted to see the house with the strange sculptures. He welcomed the attention and He even led visitors on tours of the property while the artwork was still in progress.
It's a good intersection of art and tourism. So he was using it as this political statement, and to get that statement to resonate, people needed to come see it. So the outside eyes were very important to Dinsmore in showing them what he's created, be able to plant some seeds of ideas.
The last major addition to the property was the construction of the mausoleum. Dinsmore planned for him and his first wife's bodies to be laid to rest inside the mausoleum after their death. Additionally, Dinsmore's coffin would have a glass plate over it. If visitors paid the minimum fee of $1, they could see his dead body on display. Dinsmore continued building various sculptures on his property until he was 86 years old. However, it wasn't the people of Lucas that had put into his work, it was his own body. His eyes had begun to fail him, and he was unable to continue building. The last sculpture he had been working on before his vision failed was left unfinished. Dinsmore died 3 years later and was placed in the mausoleum per his request. For a few years afterwards, the Garden of Eden continued as a major tourist attraction, but after the property was sold to new owners, the site fell into disrepair.
So there were trees and vines growing up through all of these things, and it became more of a haunted place for children to dare each other to go into. So for many years, it was this overgrown mystery, and people are uncomfortable with the unknown.
The Garden of Eden had been a controversial part of the town for decades, but now that it could be removed, people were uneasy with what they should do with it. Eventually, in 1967, the property was bought by Wayne and LuElla Nagele.
The wife of that couple said, no, we've really got to restore this. We have to honor this. So that was, I think, the turning point of, do you take away that thing that's sort of, oh, I don't know, or do you recognize its specialness? And I think it all comes down to LuElla Nagele saying, we're going to restore this. We're not going to keep it as a rental. It needs to be Dinsmore's again.
When the couple reopened the Garden of Eden in the 70s, they began sending out promotional materials to bring awareness to the site. Dinsmore's work was beginning to be recognized by both artists and the general community as a one-of-a-kind place. In the 1990s, Lucas opened a grassroots arts center downtown, spurring other artists like Dinsmore to make Lucas their home.
So they opened in the 90s, and after that, artists found not just one place, but two places. And they had a site they were caretaking, so there's 3 places. And then an artist moved downtown and opened up a thing. So then there's 4 places. It might not always be a direct effect of the garden. It might be that secondary effect of somebody who didn't move here because of that and then got another person to move here.
Much of the art around town would be considered unusual to the average person, often utilizing everyday objects as a centerpiece in the art.
Because of the Garden of Eden's out there nature, everybody accepts this as normal. So it's not strange for somebody to decide, you know what, I'm going to make a bunch of cats out of farm implements and put them in my front yard. That's not odd here. That art of the everyman's everyday experience, using what you know and what you have to work with to make an embellishment that is maybe not functional, but is serving the purpose of making you happy. If we're just making art to be pleasant, then it's decoration. I'm more drawn to art that makes you stop and makes you not take things for granted that you pass by every day. That to me is what I'm drawn to as an artist. And as a cultural resources director for the Garden of Eden, I feel that same spirit here.